Hello. The final word of this series is simplify. Simplify, which my dictionary explains means to make something easier to understand or easier to do. For example, if someone said, "Please perambulate to the rectangular transparent opening and apply sufficient force to the stiles as to unbar the lower sash," they could greatly simplify that by asking, "Please can you open the window?" So our word is simplify. Simplify. And because it can be helpful to have a gesture, an action, to go with a word, perhaps we could do this. Simplify. Simplify. So this is simple in British Sign Language. Simple. And then I point to my eye to remind myself of simplify. So you could use that. Of course, you could make up your own gesture or action if you prefer. Now let's look at our word map for simplify. Here's our word map for simplify, starting with red for what you said, the sound structure of the word. Simplify begins with a S, an S sound, and it has 3 syllables. Simplify. Simplify, like that. Thinking about the meaning of the word, green for what it means. Well, simplify is about making something easier. Making something easier. And that might be something easier to understand. So you're making something less complicated, easier to understand. Or it might be about making something easier to do. Simplifying something to make it easier to do. Blue for when to use. When might you use this word? Well, if you're confused in school, if you're not sure what to do about something, then actually it's a really sensible thing to ask if something can be simplified. You might say, if you're a bit confused, there we are, we'll draw a confused person and they can say, "Is there a way you can simplify this for me?" Is there a way you can simplify it? Is there a way you can make this easier to understand, easier to do? And in maths, we'll talk about simplifications. And an example of that would be that 9/18 as a fraction could be said more simply. A simplification would be to simply say a half. Grey for other ways you might say the word, hear the word, read the word. If you're busy making something easier to understand, easier to do, then you are simplifying. And if you finish doing that, then you simplified it. You made it easier. And that means you have done, like in maths, a simplification. So you have these words, simplifying, simplified, simplification, all come back to this idea of simplify being making something easier to understand or easier to do. And there's our word map. So a couple of questions to think about for simplify. Firstly, what would the opposite of simplify be? Imagine there was a complicated task at school, and instead of it being simplified, it was made even more. What would the opposite be? Secondly, what would you like simplified in your life? Maybe it is some learning at school. Maybe it's how to complete a level on a computer game. I know what I would like simplified is how to use my new phone. I find it too complicated, too difficult. I'd like someone to simplify that for me, but what would you like to be simplified?
Finally, I'll leave you with a new word learning activity for simplify. This time it's an idea from WordAware, which they term a synonym web, remembering that synonyms are words that mean the same or nearly the same, that are similar to the word we're talking about. So here we see simplify, we would be looking for synonyms for simplify. This is a really good activity for broadening vocabulary knowledge generally. It will stretch every pupil in a class, and this is how it works. You write the word that you've been working on in the middle, like this, and then individually or as a group, you can think of synonyms for that word, and it's absolutely fine to use a thesaurus to help with that. I'll write some synonyms for simplify down here. I'll do them in a different color just to help them stand out a bit more. Maybe we could have decipher. I might talk about deciphering a code. Up here we'll have clarify. Here we can have demonstrate. And we'll have explain. So we start by writing synonyms of the word around here, and then for each synonym we put down the context, a context in which that word might be used. And I'll go back to using blue for how to use for that. So let's say we're working on clarify. The context for that might be, maybe you need something clarified when part of your homework doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to you. So you're confused, you need to be clarified, you need clarification when part of your homework doesn't make sense. So now we'll think of a sentence that might use the word clarify. So I'll draw a big speech bubble here. And maybe if part of your homework doesn't make sense, you might say something like, I'm confused. Please, can you clarify this for me? So you're asking for it to be clarified, to make sense, to be made clearer, to be simplified so that you can understand it. So I've started off our synonym web for simplify, but I'll leave you to finish that. You can add more synonyms if you like. Good luck with that. Thanks for watching, and bye.